Hello again. This is just a short video on the audio mixer, just because there's a little tweak or two in there that can make your life a little bit easier. So as you can see, all I've done here is the same scene that we've been mainly using up until now, but I've added a couple of extra audio sources in. So this is the H5 that I Zoom audio recorder, this is the internal mic of the laptop I'm using, and this is the other cam microphone. So that's the microphone that's attached to this camera that's just sitting over here. I can stick my hand in front of it like that. That's just over there with the purple horse. Essentially I've just chosen to get the different microphones, just so that you can see what's going on, and you can see that as I talk, so the sound of my voice reaches these microphones at ever so slightly different times, and the refresh rate changes ever so slightly. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to keep talking and say all sorts of things, and while I say all sorts of things, I'm just going to line them up so that they're roughly the same. So you choose one source that you think is your best source. In this case, let's say the H5. I should say that these levels are too low, really. The internal mic of the laptop usually records at a reasonable level, so that if I talk like this, it's up into the yellows, and we want to be around here, really. But I don't want to adjust the level of the H5 at the moment, so I'm just going to line them all up so they're all recording roughly the same thing. Usually as well, you wouldn't have different audio sources recording your voice. You'd have one for your voice and then one for something else, and the setting up an audio environment is fun in itself. I would recommend for most streaming you have one nice microphone that you use, and then you stick to that and try and isolate any other sounds you want. Quite often the sounds you're trying to mix in here is other audio, like the system audio, or if you're gaming, or if you're going to bring in a video and you want to play the video to your viewers, then you'll adjust the volume of that, as we've done with the traffic videos before. So that's fine. The important thing is that you can't hear anything, because by default any source that comes into OBS does not have monitoring on. There's a small point here actually. If I just click over here, I always have these vertically because it's like mixers which I'm used to. If I right click the audio mixer, you can get rid of vertical layout and you get a horizontal layout. Some people prefer the horizontal layout. Personally I right click and do vertical layout so they can go up and down. Just if you don't like having the audio mixer here and you like having the audio mixer docked down here, it might be that horizontal layout works better for you. It makes no difference to OBS, it doesn't care. But what we're going to do is we're going to click any one of these cogs here with a left click, and I'm going to go to Advanced Audio Properties, not Properties but Advanced Audio Properties, and that's going to bring up this screen. Now this screen shows the same thing that we've got here, and you can change the volume as you've done before with the sliders, but you can do it in a more specific way down here. You can say that the source should be mono, not stereo. Sometimes that's useful if you've got a source where it's, for whatever reason, it's a stereo source but it only comes in on one channel, your left channel or your right channel, but you actually want to broadcast that down the middle, so then you'll just select mono. You can then balance some of your sources as well, but the important thing here is the audio monitoring, which instead of this, I'm not going to select any of these because we'll get some weird feedback from the microphone, but you can choose to monitor only, or monitor off is how it's set by default, which it just goes out to your viewer, you don't hear it. Monitor only means that only you will hear it but your listener will not. So that can be quite useful when you're trying to sort of listen for cues, or keeping to a backing track or something else like that, but you don't want your listeners to hear it. And then monitor and output is both ways, so you'll hear it as well as your listener or your viewer will hear it as well. So by default, for example, your own microphone will go out that way. However, if you've got headphones on and you want to hear yourself, you might want to choose to have your microphone to monitor and output. However, you might want to, just getting into the realms of where the audio interface that you're using might be a bit of a problem. The reason I say it could be a bit of a problem is because there's a thing called latency, which is I speak and whatever recording device I'm using will receive that, but it then has to process that and take a bit of time to actually get that information, that digital information, into the computer, through the computer, and then out the other side. So if you're monitoring inside OBS, there's always going to be a little bit of a delay between when you say something and by the time the information then gets through the computer and comes back again. It doesn't always matter to your viewers so much, but if you're trying to monitor yourself, by the time it's been through OBS, it might be too late, and it'll always be a bit off-putting because you're sort of echoing all the while. Terrible effect. So one of the ways around that is to use an audio interface that will allow for low latency monitoring. When I'm streaming, I'm using a Focusrite Scarlett, and the headphones socket in that allows me to monitor it before it even leaves the interface and then goes into OBS. So I can have my headphones on if I need to listen to myself, and I'm in time with myself because there's very, very little latency. However, the reason we're in this screen is for the sync offset. Now what happens is when you're broadcasting is that audio generally, even though it's got latency, it will still run faster than video processing. So if you just leave things how they are, quite often the sound will reach your viewer before the video will. It'll always be the same distance apart, but it will always reach the video first, reach your listener first. So for example, going back to the piano again, when I'm playing the piano, what happens is if I don't do anything, then as I play the piano, people will hear the sound before my fingers have pressed the keys, because especially on a fast passage. So in order to get around that, what I need to do is hold the sound up a little bit before it gets released into the world, and so it's then in sync with the video, and that's what the sync offset is. So for example, if I were on my stream, then this would be set at 80 milliseconds for all my audio, because that's the round trip that it takes the video, that's how long it takes the video to be processed and then sent out to the stream. I'm gesturing with my hands, but you can't see. Sent out to the stream before how far behind the audio the video is. So if I set this, then the minute that I do that, what OBS does is it resets this stream of audio and holds on to it for 80 milliseconds before sending it down the stream. And then your viewer will get the audio and this video at what they are perceived to be the same time. It's a bit complicated, but the easiest way to demonstrate it for yourself is to set OBS up for recording, which we'll talk about in a moment, and clap your hands nice and loudly like this on stream or on the recording, then view it back and see whether the clap sound happens before you see the hands clap together. And if it does, then you need to add some numbers in here, gradually increase the sync offset so that when you try it again, the sound gets closer and closer and closer to the hands being clapped. If you're using video editing software, it's nice and easy to do, because what you can do is you can look at the timeline and you can see where the hands have clapped together, and then look for the peak of the waveform, which will happen beforehand, and then measure the distance between the two. It sounds very complicated. To be honest, the easiest way to do it within OBS itself, set yourself recording, do a recording of you clapping your hands a couple of times, then stop the recording, start the recording again with a different sync offset. Keep doing that with, say, like nothing, 20, 40, 60, 80, and then see which one looks better to you, which one you enjoy. Depending on your hardware and how smooth your machine is, you might find that you don't need hardly any offset at all. But generally, most people need a little bit of something just to make it line up. Yep. So that's the advanced audio properties. Again, in order to get here, we just click on the little cog, go to advanced audio properties, and then you can play with this. Simple as that. Excellent. In the next video, we will deal with actually streaming and or recording, the bit we've been working towards. Okay, so this is the video we've been sort of working towards, which is the actual streaming and or recording video. I've just changed to this scene just because one of our neighbourhood Shetland ponies has decided to have a little sleep next to the fence in the chucking rain. So the camera's not very good, but it's a typical Orkney day at the moment with obviously a little bit of rain that they're not enjoying. Anyway, we didn't come here to talk about Shetland ponies. What we'd like to do is some streaming. So first of all, we're going to need to do some look at some settings to see what we'd like to do for streaming. So let's go to settings, and we want to go through a few more of the boxes in this set of screens. General we can leave alone. Stream I will come back to in a moment, but what we will just work our way down the things that really matter. So output is where we can do a little bit of fiddling. The first thing we need to care about is I tend to leave this on simple. There is an advanced mode where you can do all sorts of other things, but certainly as far as this course is concerned, and certainly as far as the streaming I've done up to this point, I would recommend that this is as far as you need to go. So the most important number that we're going to look at is this video bitrate. Now this is generally in the thousands, and quite simply the bigger the number the better. So if I can get this up to 5, 6, 7,000 or something like that, then I'm going to be streaming super high quality. Just imagine it as the bigger the number, the larger the pipe of water that you can squirt up to the internet, if you like. However, this is the number that OBS will attempt to push data up your internet connection. Now, depending on where you are in the world, you may laugh at this 3,000, or you may go, oh my goodness, I could dream of 3,000. A very, very, very simple thing to do is to use something like speedtest.net to see what your upload speed is. So the downstream, where you download and watch video, will always be a much larger number. But what you want to do is have a look at your upload speed, which generally will be something like, for example, here in Orkney, I have a download speed of 24 meg, 25 meg, and an upload speed of about 5. Now, again, I am sure I can hear people laughing as they listen to that because they've got ridiculous upload and download speeds. It really does depend on where you are in the world. But if I take the upload number, which mine says about 5, then normally you want to take about 2/3 of that. So instead of 5, think 3, 3.5, and then you add the 1,000 to that because the upload number is normally in megabits rather than kilobits. So ultimately, if I just highlight this number at the start, that's the number that should be about 2/3 of your upload speed. Your download speed has nothing to do with it really, because what we want to do is push data up. I also highly recommend that you don't use anything else going upstream on your network while you're trying to stream as well. So if you look carefully at the videos that you've looked at previously, you will have noticed that my Dropbox icon is now paused. That's because Dropbox likes to keep things in sync and constantly has a little check up and down, so it uses a little tiny bit of the upstream for itself, and we want all the upstream available for us for streaming. Now this number, we can use a little bit of jiggery pokery to test it, and we'll come to that in a moment, but I have settled on 3,000 for me, and the video quality appears to be fine. It's still HD at the other end. I will say that my piano streaming is a relatively static frame, so I don't move around too much. My hands don't really occupy a huge amount of the frame, so actually the information being sent up doesn't move around a lot. If your camera moves a lot, so the frame changes all the time, so all the pixels in the frame are changing, then that makes a big difference, because OBS and the streaming the streaming software or the streaming encoder what it will do is, if I look at this image now, let me just close this for a second. If I just go to here, this image here, the only thing that's moving is really, until I move my hand, the only thing that's moving was my lips. The rest of this image, all over here, is completely static. So one thing that OBS and the encoder does is look at that between frame to frame and go, well, all these pixels didn't change, so therefore we don't need to send that information. All we'll do is we'll just say, don't worry about updating that, just update this bit where that bit changed. And that's how we can send an HD picture at 30 frames or 60 frames, however many frames per second you want to try and send up, at the same time. However, if I were to take the actual camera and move the camera like this, so I'm moving, yeah, and my whole body is moving. The background isn't because it's set there, but if I go to the outside camera and move the outside camera like this, then the outside camera, all the pixels on the screen have just changed, so therefore it has to send all the pixels up. So then when we're looking at this number here, the number here, we've got this much space to change, to send that data up. So sometimes you may find that if you do a big camera movement, then the screen may become a little bit more blocky. That's just because you are restricted by this number. So something to bear in mind when you're streaming is to try and keep as static as possible, so you're not updating all the pixels all the time. Obviously it depends on what you're streaming. If you're streaming some live action sports, then there's not a lot you can do about it. But ultimately, the bigger the number, the better. Depending on the streaming service you are using, so for example, Facebook Live tends to have a maximum of 4,000, certainly for personal accounts. I think YouTube and Twitch have bigger numbers because they are, I mean, certainly Twitch will expect or can have anything up to, I think, 10, 12,000. I might be misrepresenting it, but they can have big numbers. But it doesn't matter if your internet connection doesn't have the capability to stream at that speed, because if you have a bigger number, as we'll see in a moment, if I set this to 10,000 and leave it at 10,000 and think, oh well, my internet will, my internet can cope with, say, 3,500, then it will throttle it, it'll be fine. Well, it won't, because OBS is still trying to force 10,000 down the same pipe, and what happens is you lose frames and it gets confused and bits of information get lost along the way. Whereas if you say, no, I've got a pipe that's 3,000 wide, please only send 3,000 things, then OBS will sort of compress everything at this end and send a nice even signal down the line. So this will become more obvious when we do a little demonstration in a moment. The encoder on this particular laptop, I've only got software. If you can find a way to find a hardware encoder, then great. Pick whichever is best. And again, experimentation is the best idea, but really just leaving them on the defaults is good. Audio bitrate, it works in exactly the same way. The bigger the number, the better. But in my experience, and bear in mind that I am a music streamer, so I stream live piano music, so I care, anything above 160, really, you can't tell the difference, not for live. So that's streaming. Then we come to recording. And recording is much simpler because it doesn't leave your computer. So all you need to do is give it somewhere to record, and then decide on how much of decent quality you want for your recordings. So I have it set on this indistinguishable quality but large file size, and I don't do the tremendously large file size. I've seen no real difference in quality between the two. Again, your mileage may vary. I save to .mov because I do a lot of work on a Mac, and MOV likes Macs like MOV, but you can record in any of these formats. There is a little warning down here about MP4 and MOV. If your computer should hang half or crash whilst you're recording to this format, then you do lose the whole video. And that's just a risk I take. If my computer hangs or OBS crashes while recording, then I've lost the stream anyway, and so there's the rub. Again, software and hardware, you may find that you have a hardware option depending on the graphics card you are using. If you have a hardware option, I highly recommend using the hardware option. So let's have a look. I've just scrolled accidentally on there. Let's have a look at this video bitrate number and how it is affected in something like Facebook Live. So what I've done is I have set up my Facebook account, be ready to receive a stream for Facebook Live. It's beyond the scope of this course as to setting up this end too much. So I'm going to just demonstrate using Facebook Live, mainly because it's got a lovely preview mode, so you can see what's going on without having to actually go live. Twitch, I believe you go as soon as you start streaming, you're live. YouTube, I think, has a similar thing to Facebook, but it's been a while since I've streamed on YouTube. So we're going to use this because it's ever so nice. Now what we need to do is find a way to link my Facebook account to my OBS, because I need to send my stream of video and audio data somewhere. And this process is the same for whoever you use. You need a server, which is essentially the company, the location of a physical piece of hardware somewhere where on the internet where you can send your stream, and then you need a unique set of letters, numbers and symbols that is unique across the whole planet, so that that server knows who you are. So on Facebook there's a server URL here, which is what we'll need for the Facebook link to get to the server, and then there's a stream key down here which you'll find will be completely blocked out, but you'll have to trust me that there's a set of letters and numbers down here. The reason I'm not showing that is because that's my unique stream key. So it's just a big load of letters and numbers, and then there's a copy button that you can use. So let's pop back to OBS. So where we had the output, we've also got a stream option. Now the nice thing about OBS is that it has the servers already built in for the default places that you can see here. However, there are other streaming services available. For example, if you want to stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch all at the same time, there is a website, for example, called Caster, which you then stream to Caster, and then Caster will stream to Facebook, YouTube and Twitch all at the same time, which means you only need to send one stream down your internet connection, and then that will be split 3 ways or copied 3 ways at their end. Otherwise, if you wanted to stream on Facebook and YouTube at the same time, you would have to create 2 streams from OBS, have 2 copies of OBS running, which is quite system intensive, as well as then sharing this connection speed between your 2 streams. So if you want to stream to multiple platforms, someone like a service like Caster are ideal. So we pick our service, we pick the server. If I wanted to be custom about it, I can click custom, and then I could put the server, I could copy the server specifically here. I can copy that entry, put that into that box, and then I can copy the stream key, which I'll need to do in any case, and paste into this box. Again, I'm not going to show you it because it's my persistent stream key, and so I don't want you to suddenly start streaming on my Facebook Live. On that subject, I've used a persistent stream key, so it's the same key for every time I go live, so I don't have to change that setting anymore. You can untick this box and generate a new key for every single stream, and then it'll be unique every time, but that does mean that you then need to go here and paste it in every single time. So once I've got this set up and it's running, then if I go and I've got my output set to this, then previously we've set up the video so that we can say what we're going to stream in. So our canvas is this size and we're going to stream this size. And likewise audio, I did previously say that should be set to 44, but really these days it should be set to 48. It doesn't make a great deal of difference. Some people would completely argue with me there, and then you get all sorts of weird audio issues and various different things. Certainly as far as beginning streaming, I don't think it really matters that much. I am sure I will get argued with at some point. But the video will matter for Facebook, so I'm going to change this output scaled resolution to 720p because that's the maximum I can stream to Facebook Live. You'll see that in a moment when I do the demonstration. So we've got everything good to go. We're going to output at 3000. We've got a video of 720. We've set our stream up to Facebook Live. We've got the stream key copied. I'll click OK, and I will click the Start Streaming button. When I click the Start Streaming button, down in the bottom right hand corner, a new little set of things comes up. It says that we're streamed live for 8 seconds, and we're currently streaming out at 3000-ish. It'll fluctuate up and down. OBS tries to stream out a little bit faster if it can, but it will constantly maintain sort of the average of 3000. So now my machine is working a little bit harder because I'm recording as well. So now we go over to Facebook, and if I look in the bottom right hand corner, I can see that there's a little preview pane of what's actually being streamed. I do use that. That is quite useful, but what I tend to do is go to Stream Health on Facebook Live, and this is a great way to test your stream. So here you can see the maximum resolution I'm allowed to stream in is 720p, and it's received the resolution of 720p. I'm only allowed to stream for 8 hours, which should be fine for this video because I'm not actually going to click this Go Live button because I don't need all my friends on Facebook to see me recording this video. But this stream metrics page is brilliant for testing your stream. What we're looking at here is your video bitrate, which again is that 3000. There's the 3000. Again, you just chop the 3 zeros off. And the frame rate and the audio bitrate. What I want to see is a dead even, nice flat line. That's what I want to see in both these lines. This line is very important, but this line is super important. This is where you're seeing choppy video at the other end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate what happens when you try to put too much down. So I'm going to stop streaming. The streaming has ended, and if I go back to here, Facebook will now say, oh no, there's nothing, I can't see anything, and eventually this graph will drop down to nothing, and I've lost my Go Live button because it hasn't got a video to stream on. There we go. So what I'm going to do is going to go back to OBS, click Settings, go to Output, and I'm going to change this to, let's say, 4000. So I'm going to be optimistic and think that the wind is behind me and think that my connection is good enough to stream at 4000. So now I'm going to go start streaming again. Now look at the bottom here, it's now streaming at 4000. Yeah, oh, well, that looks good, looks fine. We'll go here and we'll have a look at this and we'll see what happens for a moment. We're just going to have to wait while it settles. Knowing my luck, it'll be absolutely fine this time. But I know from experience that, here we go, we've got 28 frames, not 30 frames now. Yeah, we've got a higher bit rate, so it's going well. Oh, we got a little bit of a spike there. It dropped momentarily there, down to 21 frames, and now 28 frames again. And the bit rate's a little bit more it sort of fluctuates. And we've got a little bit of a jump here, and it's coming in and out. Now, you might think, well, that's all right. 23 frames is okay. It's not too bad. But actually, if you see a blip in this graph, it's much worse for your viewer, because they are seeing dropped frames, and it might hang for a moment and come back, and hang for a moment and come back. And it's actually, what you want is the smoothest graph you can find at the largest number you can stream. Yeah. So it's not a case of sending a big number, like setting it to 6,000 or something like that, or 10,000 in my case, and then just accepting that you'll lose some along the way. It's not the way. That's not the way the stream is built up. That means that OBS will be sending too much information for your internet connection to handle, and then by the time it ends up getting to the final destination, it'll always be choppy. Yeah. So this is not what we want to see. Yes, we've got a momentary 32 frames, but we've got some chopping in and out. So my experience on my internet connection has taught me that I get a nice smooth stream at 3000. And the only way I've discovered that is by doing this a lot. So I start streaming, go to Facebook Live, and see what the graph looks like after running for, 20-30 seconds. If it looks like this, a lovely smooth line, then I've got enough internet capacity to stream at that bit rate. I can then try adding 500 to the number and then try again and run it for 30 seconds and see what happens. My maximum that I can generally get smooth connection for is I can go up to 3,500, but I don't want to worry about it. And what I've discovered is the video quality is good enough at 3,000. It looks fine. I have no complaints from my viewers, and everything's nice and smooth, and I don't have to worry about it. So this Facebook Live, if you've got a Facebook account, I highly recommend you use this, even if you're not going to stream on Facebook. It's a fantastic way to test your stream and test your internet connection and see how stable your internet connection is. So it's brilliant. So if you've done all your work, I'm going to stop this stream now, like that. If you've done all your work, then your stream is ready to go, because now, as soon as you click live on Facebook or you're streaming, you can then swap scenes, and this is what your viewer will see. Yeah. Or in the case of recording, this is what your recording will record. There is a slight tweak that you can do in OBS, which is called studio mode. If I click studio mode, then I get two screens. Yeah. And this is the right hand one. The program is what your viewer is currently seeing. But now if I change scenes, yeah, only the left changes. But the right is still, this is what my viewer is still seeing. This is what I'm going to show them in a moment. And I can go to the screen share, and then I can go, okay, transition. Yeah. And now this is what your viewer is seeing, and this is what we're preparing. Yeah. And then I can go, okay, transition back. So if you've only got two scenes, this is actually quite a good way to transition between the two. I can also do a transition like this, if I so desire, if you want to do the sort of fader transition. But bear in mind, this, what you're seeing here is what's being broadcast. What you're seeing here is what you're preparing to broadcast. So actually, if you've discovered something wrong with a scene, you could flick back to Facecam and then go over here, outside camera, and then what I can do is I can go and add an image to this, and I can, let's just call it image for now. I'll add an image, which is the viewfinder again. I can click OK, I can click OK, that's great, I'll lock that. That's good. All of this I've done without affecting what I'm broadcasting. So this is what I'm broadcasting. Obviously I'm talking, so people can see that. And then I can go, OK, and then here is the result. This is what I've done. And now this is what they're seeing. Yeah. So you can do this backwards and forwards. This does require that you have a more easy access to OBS while you're streaming. So that you can press the buttons and do the studio mode all while you're doing it. Personally, I've mentioned before, I use Elgato Stream Deck to press some buttons, so I'm not actually on top of my streaming machine while I'm doing it. My streaming machine is out of reach, so I'd have to stretch forward to actually make the changes. So I prepare my stream so that I can just switch between the streams as and when I need to. But that studio mode is available. One last thing which I find very useful is there are two options. There's start streaming and start recording. In the past I have started streaming, but I actually want a local recording of sort of high quality video, because by the time it's been sent to the stream, then the final result on Facebook, for example, is what your viewers saw at the 3000 bit rate it was sent. However, if I can record at the same time, then the quality of the video I'm recording is straight to disk, so it'll be as good a quality as OBS can make it. So you have to click two buttons, but there is a lovely little setting which is automatically record when streaming. And now if I click OK, if I click the start streaming button, it starts recording at exactly the same time, and you automatically get a video then stored on your hard drive. When I click stop streaming, it stops recording as well. So you have a local copy of that video that you've or that stream automatically. Again, slight increase in resources, but I find the benefit of having the local file is so much better. So that's how you actually do the streaming. There is a panel. If I go to View and Stats, which has appeared on the other screen, then there is a little panel here which you can dock. You can dock it into your panel. I don't tend to use it all the time because the information, sort of a brief version of this information, is in the status bar at the bottom. But this tells you everything that's occurring within OBS. So if I change scenes to this scene, then you can see that the rendering time for this frame, each frame has gone up, which means it takes more time, and you can see the CPU usage. But the important things here are frames missed due to rendering lag, which is your computer's you're asking your computer to do too much, so it's lost a frame here. But then the other ones are dropped frames from, so let's start streaming again and bring up this again. So now this is streaming, and this will give you an idea of the frames that it's dropped when it tried to send them up your internet connection. So if we'd have then, if I set my number to 4000 again, we did the little demonstration we did before, you would have seen that this had gone red because it lost about 20% of the frames that I've been trying to send. We can demonstrate that. Why not? Let's demonstrate that. Let's go settings, go output. We'll change this to, let's go to 5000 because that'll really ruin it. And click start streaming. So now it's trying to do 5000 and it can't. Yeah, and it's because it's trying to do 5000, it's really struggling, and we're dropping 30% of the frames that we're trying to send to Facebook are getting dropped because they're just too big. The bitrate can't cope. And see how the bitrate is oscillating backwards and forwards. Yeah, it's because it tried to send too much, realized it couldn't, and then it's had to bring it back again. So the statistics window is good for local testing as well. I tend to find that the just looking at the graphs on Facebook are just as good as seeing this screen anyway. But it's a useful screen to have, and it gives you a nice quick local view of how hard OBS is working, how hard your internet connection is working, and whether everything is fine. Most of this is shown in the bottom here. See how dropped frames is here? So you can see a lot of it. Really, this lovely little green box is ideal. If you don't have a green box, then something's wrong. And you're either pushing it too hard or something's happened to your internet connection at the same time. Someone's trying to upload something at the same time. So that's all the bells and whistles for OBS for actually streaming and recording. At this point, we're all through. But we've just got a few little topics just to cover before we finish the course.